Hi, so we're here again for our next video, and this one will focus on using autobiography in coaching. And my colleague Matt Driver is going to take us through this. He's going to give us some information, and then I may well come back on the scene to ask Matt a couple of questions at the end about using the technique. So Matt, it's over to you, and I think you've got some slides to set up for us.
I have just a couple, so thanks very much and great to be back. Autobiography is something that we often use at the beginning of a coaching assignment to gain some insights into patterns in the coachee's life. It's got a number of advantages. It helps us to get to know the coachee while getting them to talk about themselves. It flags to them that we are open to the whole person, not just to the work person, even if what we're talking about is primarily about work. And what I've found is that it enables us to gain insights that, when I say us, I mean the coach and the coachee, to gain insights into things like patterns in their lives, influences, things which have made them the people they are, things that have got in the way, things that have facilitated their lives. It gives us insights into the coachee at their best very often, and helps us to know how have they handled challenges at different times in their lives. What are the things that they've sailed through, really grown through, and what are the things that have been quite difficult for them as well. There are a number of autobiographical processes. We could just have a conversation. I could just say, Tim, tell me a bit about your life. That's fine. Those kind of conversations can become quite long, and people can often start perhaps with the most recent things. They very often will just start by telling you about what their current job is. So that's fine if that's useful. A very useful process is the timeline process, which we often use. And on a flip chart or a new page or a screen, we ask the coachee to draw a horizontal line along the middle of that page or screen, and that represents the flow of their life from wherever the starting point is for the conversation to the present day. The starting point could be the year dot, it could be literally the whole span of their life, or it could be perhaps from when they first left school, or it could be from when they first started work, whichever seems to be the most relevant for the assignment. So they draw this line, and they maybe divide that line into decades or suitable chunks, just so that we've got a clear sense of what's the span. We then ask them to trace their life, the ups and downs of their life, through that diagram, going above the line to show positive times, to show highs, going below the line to show lows, difficult times as well, other times somewhere in between as well. It's very subjective, but we ask them to draw this line representing the flow of their life from whenever we start to the present time. And while they do this, we don't press them, we don't coach them at this point, but what we do is ask them to tell us briefly what it was that made those times the highs or the lows or the mediums that they were for them. They can tell us as much or as little as they choose at this point. At the end, when we look at the whole line, we would then invite them to consider, well, what does this line say to you right now? What are the patterns that you can draw from this right now? And as the coach too, I might make an observation about what I've seen there as well. This will then help to inform conversations later in our coaching. For example, when we start to come up against blocks or more personal challenges which get in the way for this person. So Tim, I hope that's a useful intro. What questions do you have?
So it definitely is, Matt, and thank you for doing that. That's really helpful. I guess one of my questions is how best to introduce this. So how would you set it up with an individual? You say it's often best at the beginning of a coaching program, which makes sense. How would you tee it up?
Well, I'd probably do all the contracting bit first of all, so that we're clear what we're talking about, how long we've got, all the practicalities have been covered, and we know that they're reasonably clear as they can be about what coaching is. And then I think I would say something fairly directive, like, it's really useful at this point for me to know a bit more about you and the whole of you. And to do this, I've got a technique which I'd like to suggest that I use. I'll guide you through that. You can tell me as much or as little about your life as you wish. And at the end, we'll just stop and reflect on that. I'd say something quite simple like that, I think. Yeah. But I think I would generally introduce it. I would suggest that we do it fairly directly, allowing them a bit of space to say no if they really don't want to. But most people quite like telling you about their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, thank you for that. So that was going to be my next question, actually. How do people find it, and how do they react to doing either the telling of the story and also that timeline piece?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Most people really enjoy it. That's what I find. If I ever have a challenge around this, it's about containing it so that it doesn't just go on and take the whole of the session up. But it does sometimes provide unexpected insights. It looks like quite a superficial or quite a simple exercise, and in one way it is, but what I'm constantly surprised at how much comes out of this kind of exercise, and it gives us some very, very useful pointers for the kinds of challenges that they bring up in the coaching after that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So constantly surprised by how much comes out of it, and it sounds like you referenced this before, but often people can see connections too, can't they? Even sort of 4 sessions in, they might suddenly click, I'm doing it again, or that pattern's emerging again, isn't it?
And absolutely.
Have a real insight. Excellent.
And it's a great way for you as the coach to get to know them a bit more, in probably a little bit more depth than if you just said, tell me about yourself, in which case they tend to tell you very factual stuff.
Yeah.
But being asked to talk about highs and lows, there's a little bit more of the emotional component there of their life, which does give you a much greater insight into the person.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. That's really useful. Okay. So in our next installment, which we're gonna film in the next few minutes, you're going to take me through the timeline exercise. So I'll be your client, and we'll demonstrate how this can work for real, and how you might make this happen. So thank you for now, Matt, and I'll see you in a very similar place in just a few minutes' time.
Okay.